Welcome to Entrepreneurmaxxing. Quick little housekeeping, quick context. It's been 6 months since I last saw you. Let me kind of fill you in on what's happened. The last 6 months I have been working at a startup. I've also been in school. Both of those things are now done. So I recently just graduated and I also just quit my job at a startup. And now I am pursuing full-time entrepreneurship, building a company, and here's where my mind is at. I've seen this kind of quote been thrown around in startup circles, in entrepreneurship, and it's basically, if I had 10x the agency, what would I be doing right now? This question is stuck in my head. How it is that I can 10x my agency, specifically within entrepreneurship? How do you successfully create and then run a successful business? And this is the blueprint, distilling all of my knowledge of entrepreneurship within the last year or so, bringing it into one video, these are going to be some of the traits that 10x entrepreneurs have. So the first thing is having this unreasonably high resilience towards anything that they are facing in their life. So what do I mean by this? The kind of analogy to this is being able to eat glass for long periods of time. Next thing I would say is having a shark nature. As soon as they see a gap in the market, they attack it immediately. They have extreme amount of confidence in themselves. And also, they actually make mistakes quite often, but they do it without fear. The last thing that I want to say that actually makes a 10x entrepreneur is having aura. Steve Jobs has this reality distortion field that he's famous for. Essentially, it was being able to convince people of the impossible. This is something that he did relentlessly at Apple. And it was kind of like a combination of many things. Not only did he entirely believe in himself, which then propagated towards others, but he also had a lot of charisma. He had really good leadership skills, and he could actually determine the strengths and weaknesses of everybody that he worked with. A claim that I will make is that all of these traits are naturally innate in everybody. Everybody has these traits, whether or not you actually use them on a day-to-day basis or whether or not you've ever used them in your entire life. But I think that everybody has the potential to be able to bring these traits out of them and up into the to the forefront of what they're doing. Okay. So how do we do this? I think it's really important to have a good foundation to your life. This can actually be taken out of entrepreneurship, but having a good operating system for a productive life just in general is super important. So let's start with that. So the first thing is having great habits. Going to the gym, eating healthy, reading, having good friends, not spending too much time on social media, that type of thing. The other thing I would say is having extreme amount of consistency. Showing up every single day has a compounding effect on the trajectory of your life. After the operating system, we now get into the belief system. What is the soul? What is this fire inside of you where when your alarm goes off and you've only gotten 5 hours of sleep, what is that thing inside of you that is saying, get up and let's get to work immediately? Because a lot of people will say, I need 2 more hours. But the 10x entrepreneur is able to just get up immediately. And it's important to be able to find this fire in you. Essentially, why you trust yourself, why you have faith in your life. Why do you get up and know that you're going to be successful? Why do you get up after being pushed down? It's just that it's like this fire inside you. As soon as you can define that and figure out what it is inside of you that makes this fire grow stronger, that can really unlock a huge amount of potential within entrepreneurship. The last thing I want to mention, quickly go over, is having a burnout prevention system. So it could be simple as meditating, self-reflecting, journaling, hanging out with friends. So it's important to identify when you're burning out, because burnout is entirely inevitable. And then having systems in place to actually address that. I think a good way to actually just prevent burnout entirely is by being ultra competitive, finding people to compete with, finding goals, setting goals for yourself, just using that competitive nature to just kind of essentially forget about burnout, because that's at least what happens to me whenever I'm highly competitive. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. So we've kind of talked about concepts. Let's actually talk about the first principles, the things that you can do starting immediately. So the first thing I want to say is that you always need to find a paying customer first before you build out a product. Super important. A lot of more technical and engineering type entrepreneurs like myself go into this mindset of, I want to build this perfect product, but it's important that you get people to actually pay you first before going out and spending all this time building something that's really, really cool. So what do I mean by this? Send cold emails out, figure out channels in which you can reach out to people that will give you money for whatever product it is that you're interested in building in. So for example, if I want to build some type of marketing agency, I can reach out to brands that would need my specific product and marketing and pitch them on this idea. So the road is really long for that, right? But as soon as you get one person to agree to that, it like explodes in terms of potential. Not only did you just validate your idea, which then gives you the green light to actually go out and like full send on building out this perfect product, but it also means that you just made money, which is like the very definition of why you're getting into entrepreneurship, most likely. Okay. The next thing I want to say is that it's important to always do the single most challenging task immediately. So whatever's on your task list, pick out the one that is the most difficult, the one that you look at and you go, oh my, the one that you look at and you actually almost feel like lazy in a way looking at it and you kind of just want to not tackle it. It's important that you just tackle it immediately. Do not think, just go. Do not think, just go. Don't think about all the work that it's going to take, just do it. And it takes about like a week or two of sitting in that uncomfortableness, but eventually becomes a habit where you can attack the most challenging thing of the day. And I think that is super important for a 10x entrepreneur. Okay. The last thing that I want to mention, and this will help you in terms of finding opportunities within the market, is understanding that the economy has vacuums. Almost always, the economy is in some type of equilibrium. So if there is an opportunity that exists, let's say that the opportunity is within AI robotics, everybody will attack that idea as soon as it's identified, right? Okay, sure. Who are the people that innately have an advantage when a new industry like that is created? It's people who are the first movers, people who have the most tech, people who have the most insight within that industry. Okay, also fine, that makes sense. How do you become that person? How do you have that insight to actually go out and build AI robotics from back in 2020? Because people were doing it back then. What allowed them to actually understand that there was an opportunity within this market? So this is my thesis on that. The reason why they're able to figure out that there is a vacuum in the market is with knowledge. That knowledge comes from industry insight. Where does that industry insight come from? It comes from experience. And where does experience come from? Experience is then gained through trying, making mistakes, learning, being courageous about the things that you do, making mistakes over and over again, because truly that is the only way that you will learn, and you will then gain experience to be able to then apply that to vacuums in the market. And in my opinion, the fastest way to do all of this is by removing your fear and just fucking around and finding out. Now it's your turn to go out and actually do this stuff. I think that there's 3 questions that I'll leave you with. What are your inherent advantages going into entrepreneurship? What sets you apart compared to everybody else? What have you learned so far in your entire life? What insight can you bring to the table? And the last thing is, what is something that drives you, something that you're inspired by, something that you can then look up to and chase that? Could also be a person as well, like Steve Jobs, for example. All right, that is basically it. I want to leave this off with one last thing. This concept of Entrepreneurmaxxing is also a project that I'm going to be working on and a website that I'm developing. I wanted to, essentially the game plan is to gamify entrepreneurship, making it this like competitive leaderboard in which anybody can be onboarded into the entrepreneurship experience and then compete with others, improve their product, improve their offering, improve their sales channels, gamifying the entrepreneurial experience. Definitely look out for that coming out soon. That is going to be it. Thank you so much for watching.